before the internet, where you found music, and the hub of music culture were the record stores. And the people that worked at the record stores were working there out of passion and out of their love of sharing music and being around music and being part of the scene. I worked at Record Exchange and was so proud to work at Record Exchange at Coventry. And the people I met there and the exposure to different kinds of music was incredible. And Amos Lee, in his interview with Tavis Smiley, talks about Papa Jazz, the record store he worked in Columbia, South Carolina, and how important it was to him, and how the owner would let employees take records home to listen to hear the music, and to hold the music, and to read the liner notes. And thank goodness that there's been a resurgence in vinyl.
For 10 years, Amos Lee has been bringing his blend of folk, rock, and soul to audiences eager to break down musical barriers. His latest CD, titled Mountains of Sorrow, Rivers of Song, was recorded in Nashville in just 3 weeks and features collaborations with the likes of Alison Krauss, Patty Griffin, and Jeff Coffin of the Dave Matthews Band. We'll take a look first at a cut from that album. Take a look at this clip. You still got it, Amos. You still got it. Do you ever worry when you go in the studio whether or not you still have it?
I mean, honestly, man, at this point, I just try to have fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we work hard all year, and you just try to, you know, you write all these songs. I went in with my touring band this time. We just want to have fun, man. Basically, yeah.
You have as loyal a fan base as any artist I know. And every time you put something out, people pack these clubs to come hear you and to see you do what you do. What strikes me as fascinating about that, over all the years we've been talking, I've been at this 11 seasons now just here on PBS, and you've been here more times than I can count. More times than I can count. We're always happy to have you come back.
Thanks, man.
But it occurred to me for this conversation that you don't really have a quote-unquote signature song.
Right. Sure.
And yet, they keep coming, they keep coming, they keep coming. Does that concern you? Does it bother you? Is it never a thought in your mind?
Mm-hmm. I just feel lucky.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just grateful for, like, just so many things, man. Like, so I started out with Blue Note in 2003 before I signed with them. And with Bruce Lundvall, who signed Stanley Jordan too, like awesome artists, man, like the first artist he ever signed. So, man, I have worked with the best people, family environment like your work environment is, and that's the way it is for us, man. Like, it's just a family business, and we've just been running it since the very beginning, and that's the way we're going to run it until the very end. And the more people come along, we're happy to have.
Yeah.
But for us, it's about the values of, like, this is our business, this is our love. You know, I would love to have a signature song. I'd love to have something that, like, brings more people to the party, but man, it's been growing slow because that's what it is. It's just a family business for us.
Yeah. So speaking of signature songs, tell me about your songwriting process, and when you sit down to put together a new project. And obviously every project is different, but I'm just trying to get a sense of what you're after on any given project when it comes to the actual songwriting.
Yeah, I don't really have much of an agenda with it. Like, it's kind of whatever I'm feeling or thinking about during that time frame. I mean, it's the kind of thing, like, doing the work that I do, it's sort of not specific. Like, if you're a novelist, you have sort of themes that run throughout novels. Like, you start a novel and you finish a novel. Or a film, it's kind of the same thing. With record making in the singer-songwriter world, or whatever it is that I do, it's a little different because there is no, like, there's no specific arc that is necessarily, like, it's not a concept record. It's just like, these are snapshots of 3 minutes to 4 minutes of emotional stuff that I went through at a period, and I'm putting them all together. So if you look at the record, basically what we try to do, man, is just create a cool listening experience for people and put songs that are gonna, when we play our show, people are gonna wanna hear them. You know, that's kind of it.
Does a cool listening experience, to use your phrase, is that enough these days, or does it have to be a concept project? And I raise that since you raised it first, because I've talked to so many artists over the years, over the last few years, and it seems that these concept records are the things that everybody's doing.
Yeah.
So can you just put out a track, I mean, an album with 12 tracks on it that give the audience a great listening experience and have that work?
I think that it does seem like people are interested in, like, it's weird because it's like there's a dichotomy there. people love these like very cohesive, beautifully structured albums that really kind of sound together. And then there's like the singles thing where people just really want a song or two or three off of a record. And like I grew up working at a record store and listening to vinyl, even if it's side A and B, there's always this continuity that really turned me on about music. And so I think it's like weird because you listen to records that are like these just beautiful streams, man. They start and it just flows, and when it ends, it's almost like it never started. But it's also like the market stuff you hear, like people buying music. It almost seems like singles and like the concept of an album doesn't even interest people that much anymore. So it's kind of weird.
I followed everything you just said except for one thing. You lost me when you referred to something called a record store. What is a record store?
Yeah, man. I know, man. It's such a drag. That place changed me, man. It's like it was a vintage jazz record store. And people, it was.
I really don't know what that is.
I know, man. I know.
A record store is one thing, but a vintage jazz record store, like what is that?
I know, it's such a drag. Like, I mean, it's cool that we have these devices that have every album ever made at our fingertips at all times. But I mean, I remember like a couple times in particular, like going to buy Voodoo when it first came out, the D'Angelo record, and just being excited to go to the record store. Like, I'm gonna get up early, make sure it's not sold out. Like there was something like cool about that, man. You know, like particular. And now it's like, you know, you have the record before it comes out, or then you just stream it, and it's like, it almost like, I hate to say it because it's like a grand statement, but it almost devalues the experience a little bit because there's no like courting. Like you don't have to court the record at all. You just whatever, stream it, and it's cool. You fall in love with records still, but there's no courting phase for albums. Like there's no like, it's like a show. Like I know, for instance, you love James Taylor, right? So you went to that Troubadour show. Tavis, you were excited. You know what I'm saying, man? It was so cool.
Too excited. Yeah. Sit down, Tavis, sit down.
Right. So like how long ahead of time were you like just so psyched for that night? And so it's like the build up for records is cool, but when it comes to the experience, it's so like, it's so immediate, and it's like just, you type something in and then you hit it and it's there. It's like, it's almost too easy or something, you know? It's like, it's not like it takes away from the love of music. People love music. They're always going to love music. It's our job to like consistently push ourselves as artists to keep delivering stuff for people to stay engaged with. But as an experience, as a listener, for me, I miss the record store. You know, I miss going in and knowing the guy at the counter and being like, hey, you know, like, knowing that he was going to hate the record I put on the counter and still buying it. You know what I mean? That takes some guts.
You said 2 or 3 things now that that I want to pick up on. Or 3 things that make me had my mind going in a bunch of different directions in no particular order. No,
Welcome to my ADD.
Yeah. I got ADD too. You were talking about it. You don't have to court the record anymore, but that's a sign of our times. You ain't got to court nobody no more.
I know, man.
You can go online and download the record. You can go online and get a date. I mean, there's no
the courting is over.
The courting in America, the courtship of anything or anybody is over now. So that I guess is consistent in relationships. So why should it not be that way for music? The second thing I thought about was that you're right. I do love James Taylor, but I also love Amos Lee.
Right.
And I was in a conversation just the other day, even before I knew you were coming on the show. A friend of mine is working on, finally, Willie Nelson is doing his autobiography. And a friend of mine, David Ritz, it may not even be public knowledge yet, a friend of mine named David Ritz is doing the book with Willie Nelson. And I was saying to David just the other day that one of the great joys of my life, I will remember it and revel in it for as long as I live, was being asked to be the host of the 25th anniversary of Farm Aid. And you were on the bill that night. And just standing in the shadows that night and watching all these great acts, from Willie to Neil Young to Mellencamp to Dave Matthews to Norah Jones. I mean, everybody was there. And to watch you that night on that stage in Milwaukee. You remember this?
Man, I loved it.
You killed that night. It was amazing. You killed it, just standing in the shadows watching you. It was one of the great joys of my life that night, just to watch you do your thing at this stadium in Milwaukee. It was a great evening, and I'll remember as long as I live. Just when we talk about the record store, what were your takeaways? You talked about being excited to go to the store to buy albums, but what was your takeaway as a young man from having the experience of working inside of a record store? And I ask that because some of the coolest people I know
Yeah.
Our folk, Donnie Simpson, who was the guy on BET for years.
Yeah,
and I was on
totally
BET years
remember,
ago.
yeah.
Donnie used to work at a record store in Detroit, and he
Yeah.
became a great DJ, became a great radio host,
Yeah.
a great TV guy. But it all started for Donnie Simpson working in this record store in Detroit. So
Yeah.
what you take away from working in a record store?
I mean, it all started for me in that record store. It's called Papa Jazz Records in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was just walking by one day and I saw Help Wanted sign. I was like, I'll never work there because I'm not cool enough. But they hired me and I started working 6-hour shifts, and I was working 5 days a week. And the coolest part about it was Tim, the owner, would just let us bring records home, whatever we wanted, And so that was kind of where I first became acquainted with Donny Hathaway Live or Coltrane Live at the Vanguard, Eric Dolphy. I mean, just so much music that took me, like, as a young writer, it was like very discouraging, but it also took me to a place where I was like, this is the power that music has. Like, when you listen to Dolphy or you listen to that Donny Hathaway Live record, I mean, you can't help, for me, I couldn't help but be blown apart a little bit.
If Donny Hathaway Live doesn't move your soul, you are soulless.
Yeah, pretty much.
God help you.
Yeah.
If you listen to that and it doesn't touch your spirit, then
Pretty much.
yeah, you can't be helped.
That's true.
Before I let you go, tell me about, we've talked about everything except the album in particular. Tell me about Mountains of Song, Rivers of Song.
Yeah, it's a collection of songs that I really wanted to work with my band, my live band, because during the Mission Bell record and touring cycle, they put in so much good work, and we really came together as a unit. And they're great to work with, man. So my idea was just to go to Nashville and work with Jay Joyce and record with those guys. And the title song is written about Levon Helm, who, did he ever get a chance to have Levon on?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Hey, maybe my radio show, I think.
Yeah. I mean, a huge inspiration,
Yeah.
man. We did a show at the Ramble that he had, and he wasn't well. You know, he had a serious illness, and he kept giving it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kept giving it in a real way. Like, there was no fade about him.
Right.
And so it was just a beautiful thing to be around, and an inspiration to me as like a dude who's a little bit younger, going like, all right, man, well, that's the mission. You're going to be given your whole life, so just get used to it.
I love that. I was about to ask you what the takeaway was from that experience, but you just told me.
Yeah.
And there couldn't be a greater lesson, I think, to learn from watching somebody giving it up all the way to the end, as I suspect you'll be doing.
I hope.
Yeah. He's doing it now. His name is Amos Lee, of course. The new project is called Mountains of Sorrow, Rivers of Song. Wonderful project. I think you will love it. And if you ever, trust me, if you ever get a chance to see Amos Lee in concert, do yourself a favor. Go check this brother out. Amos, always good to have you on. Good to see you, man.
Thanks,
love you
Tavis.
back. That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep the faith.
For more information on today's show, visit Tavis Smiley at pbs.org.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw on Cleveland Live Music, make sure to click on the subscribe icon. And Patreon and GoFundMe information is below as well. Keep it going. Keep it going.